In this lesson, we're learning about all of our different editing tools over here so that we can edit our footage on our timelines in a very efficient way. That's the goal, is to make you efficient editors just like a pro would be. To learn how to do this, let's start a new sequence. I'm going to take some of my B-roll clips and add it to just a new sequence that we can work on. I'm going to take this cruising down street MP4 and just drag it onto a new sequence. Sometimes that pops up. It seems like it's asking you to add a completely new sequence. Just press cancel, and then it's already added this new sequence. So I'm just going to call this B-roll edits. Then I'm just going to take cruising down the street 2, drag it on to the end. Then let's just do working on the chair, and maybe one more photo of Anthony and Larnie. So I'm just have all 4 of these clips back to back. The entire clips are on there. So let's go through our tools. First is the selection tool, and whenever you hover over any of these tools, you see the keyboard shortcut, V for selection. This is your most popular tool. It's what you're going to use to select and move around. Sometimes this modifies to a different tool. For example, when you hover over in between a panel, it changes, so you can change the panel size. When you hover on the side of a clip on your timeline, it changes to the trim edit tool. What that is, it allows you to select a clip and drag the endpoint in, or the endpoint in or out. So now if we play through this, it gets cut off right there instead of going all the way to the end of the clip and cutting to that next shot. So just using the selection tool and the trim edits, you are able to edit these clips down. And one thing you can see when I actually am making that edit, when I have this selected and I drag in or out, you can see up in the program monitor, you can see where I am about to edit in or out. So say I want to edit before he gets to that truck. See right here? Maybe I want to edit the end right there. So now if I play through this, it goes and cuts right there before he rolls past that truck. There's different ways to get it to be at that point though. So let me just extend these sides. I'm going to skip over to this razor blade tool. Think of it as a razor where you can cut your clips up. So I can just cut around and it cuts the clips into different pieces. I'm going to undo that, just pressing Command Z on my keyboard, Control Z if you're on a PC. If I want to cut specifically at this frame right before he gets to the truck, I can take my razor blade tool and just trim right there. So now we have an edit right at that spot. I can go back to my selection tool, just pressing V on my keyboard, select this second part where he's going behind that truck, and delete it just by pressing delete on my keyboard on a Mac or backspace on a PC. Say I want to cut right there, but then go directly into this clip right here, which hasn't been color corrected, to about this point. I can take my razor blade tool again, trim right there, take my selection tool, select this first part, delete it. Then I can select all of these clips or just this single clip and drag them over to the left to where they meet. You'll notice that a lot of the things I'm doing, it seems like there's like a magnetic touch. As soon as you get over to the left, it snaps into place. That's because I have this magnet snap button selected. And that's very useful, especially when you're making edits, when you want to specifically make a cut where your timeline indicator is with the magnetic snap button on. It will automatically help you edit to that point. It will help you move things specifically to that point. If I don't do it, if I don't have snap on, I have to eyeball it. I have to get it right there where they meet, and that's a little bit harder than with the magnetic snap tool on. So that's one way to move these clips all the way to the left. I'm going to move them back, and I'm going to show you a different way. You can click in this area between the clips and press delete on your keyboard, and that does a ripple delete. It's the same thing as going right click and choosing ripple delete. It deletes the space in between and it moves everything on the right side to the left. You can do a lot of edits with just those tools. Just with the selection tool, where you can choose the end of a clip or the beginning of a clip to drag in or out, and the razor blade tool. But Premiere Pro comes with some other tools that are even more helpful. I'm just going to get this back to where we were, where the entirety of all of these clips are on our timeline. One tool I want to talk about is the Ripple Edit tool, B on the keyboard. See what happens when I select that tool and I hover over the edge of a clip. When I'm not hovering over the edge of a clip, it doesn't look like it can do anything. It's not going to let me select anything. But if I hover over the edge of the clip, and I drag to the left, see what happens when I let go? All of the clips on the right automatically jump to the left. So it automatically does that ripple delete of that space that was between, where before we had to delete it ourselves. This is just a one-step process. Same if we go to this next shot and we drag in to the point where we want, it's going to edit to that point and make all these clips jump over to the left. Let me show you what happens if we were to do that same thing without the Ripple Edit tool. So I just undid that, take my selection tool, drag in, there's that space right there. But with the Ripple Edit tool, it automatically will jump all these clips to the right over to the left. So now we have this edit right here to here. Got it? And this clip is not color corrected. You might be thinking, wow, why does that clip look so bad? We're going to learn how to color correct this footage in a future lesson. It's because we shot basically raw footage. That's what that LUT, that LUT file is all about. We'll learn about that during color correction. So that's the Ripple Edit tool. A quick way to get to the Ripple Edit tool, let me just zoom in a little bit further on my keyboard, is when we are hovering over our timeline with our selection tool, just press Command on your keyboard or Control if you're on a PC. See what happens now with Command selected? My selection tool becomes the Ripple Edit tool, that yellow tool. And when I select and drag in, it acts as the Ripple Edit tool. You'll notice when I have commands, I'm still pressing Command, there's this other tool. This is the Rolling Edit tool. It's red, it has 4 arrows. What this does, it will move this cut point to the right or left, and it will edit the left or right sides. So see what happens when I click this with the Rolling Edit tool and drag to the left? This first clip becomes shorter, and the second clip became longer. We could do that ourselves just with the selection tool by clicking with the Trim Edit tool and then clicking the second one and dragging it to meet it. But the same thing happens when we use the Rolling Edit tool, drag to the left, or when we have our selection tool selected and we press Command on our keyboard and we go in between when we see the red Rolling Edit tool highlighted and drag. There are 2 more tools that I want to go over really quickly, the Slip tool and the Slide tool. Let me just make this clip a lot shorter. I'm just going to make this clip very short right here. I'm just going to delete that space in there. I can just take my Slip tool, Y on my keyboard, click on this clip, and then drag to the left. You can see that there's 2 videos popping up in the program monitor. The video on the left is where the video will start. The video clip on the right shows where that clip will end. So say we want to get him already rounding this current corner and end right there when he gets into the shadow of that tree. It's basically slipping this clip to the left, the timing of it, so it starts and ends earlier. Or we could slip back, dragging to the right, so it starts and ends later. I hope that kind of makes sense. I know it's a little bit confusing, but I think playing with these tools yourself, you'll start to understand what's actually going on. The last one is this Slide tool. Say I have 3 clips in a row. If I select this middle clip and drag to the right or drag to the left, see what happens. It moves this clip to the left, it edits the first clip shorter, and it makes this third clip longer, or back to the right. So it's taking that middle clip and editing the clips around it, the first and the third clips in this sequence. The tools that I mainly use are the selection tool with the modifiers of the rolling edit and the ripple edit. This will make you a very efficient video editor. I want to show you one more thing back on our main sequence. I'm going to delete these two B-roll clips that we have just by selecting them and pressing delete on our keyboard. And same with this audio, selecting it, pressing delete, or backspace if you're on a PC. We have these two clips, interview A and interview B. If I take my, say, razor blade tool and I go through this and we're listening and we find a good spot that we want, I can either make an edit to both clips by clicking one after the other, and then say we play through this and we really like this soundbite that he's saying right now, and then we stop and we want to take that selection again. Now we can, with the selection tool, take this selection and move it around, or take this first selection and delete it, whatever we want. But that was a two-step process. I'm just going to undo that. So say, let's just open up this waveform again. I'm going to zoom in here on my keyboard. Say we want starting here to here for both clips. We can take the razor blade tool again. While we have it hovering over our timeline, press Shift on your keyboard, which makes it a razor blade tool that cuts everything on the timeline at this point. With the regular razor blade tool, it just cuts that track that you click on. With the Shift double razor tool, it cuts everything on the timeline. So it's just a faster way to cut everything, because you might have not only audio, you might have B-roll, you might have all sorts of other things, and you want to just trim everything at once. Another way to do this, there's always another way, so I hope you're sticking with me because this is really important. For this audio track, what we're going to do is we're actually just going to delete the B camera audio. So to select just the B camera audio versus the video, you have to option click the audio, alt click if you're on a PC. See, if you just click one or the other, it selects both the audio and the video. So if you press delete, it will delete both the audio and the video. But if we just want to get rid of this audio A, what we can do is press option, click, and it just selects the audio track, whatever clip we select, and then delete it. Or we might not want to actually delete this audio track because we might want to save it just in case the audio from camera A gets messed up or something like that. It's just backup. We never really want to delete it. We can just right click, and you'll see again what I did. I actually just right clicked and it selected both the audio and video. What I'm going to have to do is option right click and then check enable. What enable does is similar to what this toggle track on and off button does, but instead of turning on and off an entire track, it turns off just a single clip. So now the audio from camera B is off if we play through this, but it's still there in case we need to enable it later on. It's time to play a little bit around with this edit. What I want you to do before we start the next part of the project is go through this interview and find the parts that you want to save for your video. So this interview clip is 7 minutes long or so. The final project for this course is to have a 1 minute long video. And I know a minute might or might not sound long to you. A minute video for a lot of people is long nowadays. But when you have an interview like this, it is hard to kind of pick and choose the points that you want to edit. So go through the interview using the editing tools, make your selections, and cut it down to just 1 minute. So by the next lesson, you and I will have a sequence that just has 1 minute worth of video with both interview camera A and B interview audio A on and interview audio B off. And it's just going to look like a sequence like this, but it's going to have a bunch of edits, and it's going to be a minute long. Now, in the next lesson, I'm going to jump ahead to adding B-roll and making a good sequence. But at the very end of this course, I'm going to put together a bunch of the longer lessons, including one where I walk through my entire editing process for finding the right audio clips for this interview. This is 7 minutes long. Anthony talks about a lot of different things, and it's interesting to see perhaps what you are going to create, what I want to create, what I think is important, what you think is important, or maybe it's not the most important thing, but just what you think would be interesting for a minute-long piece. So if you want to see me edit this entire interview clip down to 1 minute, there will be a lesson later on in the course. I just am explaining that I don't want to put it in the very next lesson because some people might want to just do it themselves and jump onto the next lesson where we'll learn a little bit more. So anyways, I've talked about this long enough. Enjoy that lesson if you want, and we'll see you in the next lesson when we start adding more B-roll to our footage.